This podcast is a project of the Climate Designers Network.
Hey, it's Eric. Welcome to Climify Season 4. We've had so many good comments about our Change the System season. So much so, we ended up lining up 3 special episodes just for Back to School 2024. The special series is timed for, you guessed it, Back to School, August and September. Each of our guests and organizations in these 3 upcoming episodes are changing the systems in our schools, whether they be public or private. All of which are hoping to increase our knowledge about the climate crisis and inspire climate action. Our first episode's guests are from College to Climate, where they work to expand opportunities for young people to pursue careers in climate. Our second guest is from Generation 180. It's an organization that's already putting solar panels on our schools and homes. And finally, our third 2 guests are from the New Wave Research Project from the Climate Designers. They're hoping to help center student experiences at the intersection of design and climate change. In this first episode, I'm happy to talk with Jessica, Carson, and Kevin from College to Climate. This organization was founded and now run by students and recent grads. They understand the challenges young professionals face during the climate job search because they've been through it themselves. That's why they're on a mission to empower the next generation of climate professionals. They work with universities, climate tech companies, and other organizations to show students that there is a place for them in climate, no matter what their major is or their background. Well, welcome to Climify. We have an amazing group of people here today on a 3-person panel, Jess, Larson, and Kevin. And there is a lot to talk about with your organization. Why don't we start with some introductions?
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I'm Jess. I am one of the co-founders at College to Climate. And in addition to College to Climate, my climate career is I work as a senior account executive at a PR and communications agency called Redwood Climate Communications. And we get to work with climate tech companies across the market, as well as nonprofits and sustainability initiatives. So I get to bring that work to my work with College to Climate, and I'm super excited to be here.
Super excited to be here as well. I'm Larson. I'm also one of the co-founders of College to Climate. But apart from College to Climate, I also work as a product manager for a company called Ohm Analytics. We're a market intelligence firm covering the energy transition. I spend a lot of my time talking about the EV charging market, actually. So that's kind of what my day-to-day looks like, but fun to kind of have College to Climate on my plate.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin. I currently lead design for College to Climate. So all things graphics, visuals, content, brand identity, thinking about just like how we can kind of make kind of design an inclusive community presence with the way that we brand ourselves. But aside from my College to Climate like volunteering that I do, I also work on, I previously was on Salesforce's Net Zero Cloud team, and I was a writer there, and we were working on an ESG carbon accounting tool. But now I'm actually in a transition period where I'm going to be an incoming Fulbright scholar to Estonia, where I'll be researching climate technologies and innovation ecosystems at the Tallinn University of Technology.
Kevin, congratulations. That's a great honor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm super excited, but also...
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, College to Climate, the name sounds pretty self-explanatory, but Jessica and Larson as the co-founders, can you talk more about its mission and how it got started?
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Larson, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I'll kick it off just with kind of the origins. College to Climate started unofficially in the fall of 2022. I was a senior at school, always kind of looking to have a job post-grad where I could work on climate in my career. Had internships, kind of had nothing to do with it, and just kind of had trouble finding, resources, from the university or professors or, peer group that was kind of focused on that kind of professional transition towards climate. There's, all sorts of professional organizations for other things. But notice that like creating kind of community around that would be a great way to, help other students, but also kind of help myself with that job searching process. And we ended up, hosting monthly meetups where we'd invite on Zoom, we'd invite a bunch of students from universities around the world and a climate professional that had recently graduated to come chat with students just very casually about their career. And so, we ended up building, we did a community out of that. We hosted 8 or 10 meetups throughout the academic year. And that kind of boiled into the larger community that College to Climate is now. We have, we've reached over 1,200 students
Yep.
in our community from, over 200 universities around the world, a lot in the US, but in other places as well. I think the other thing I want to mention real quick, and then I'll let Jess and Kevin take it away. But, we've reached students from really all kind of academic backgrounds. I think a big kind of conception about, climate work and, student academics that leads up to that is that you have to be an environmental science major. We did a, kind of study on all the students who've joined our community, and only about 20% of them are environmental science majors, and the remaining 80% is kind of made up of a lot of different things across business, technology, engineering, different sciences, communications, poli sci majors, English majors, whatever it may be. So, I think, one of our core missions is to promote that, there's a job out there for everyone in climate. Everyone has a role to play, no matter what you go to school for.
Yeah, every job is a climate job, right?
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. I would love this to chime in. I think great what Larson is getting at is we were all students once looking for climate jobs. And we
Yeah.
know how challenging and how difficult and ultimately how lonely that can be because, if you don't have community, if you don't have peers who are going through a similar process, it can be really confusing and overwhelming. And I think that's one of the biggest things that ultimately, really from our origins, what Larson and what we've all created is a community, a trusted community where students can feel safe, where they can ask questions, where they can, kind of work through this together. And so that's ultimately, I think, what our mission really is, right? Is we're just trying to reach as many students as possible with the tools, the resources, and ultimately the connections as well, the relationships as we can to help them land jobs in climate as we did. And I think a little bit there too is a lot of inspiring and
Mm.
instilling hope in students. Climate change is like this really prickly topic. It comes with a lot of stress and emotions and fear and, a lot of different things. It's very big. It's a big problem. Right?
Yeah.
And so naturally people can be overwhelmed, but when you have a community of people who are inspired and passionate about these solutions that are, being invested in every day, it becomes a lot more fun. And yeah, would love to talk more about that today for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The part that I left out is that, we all got connected through these meetups to
Oh,
Kevin first and then to Jess. That's how the team grew. So
yeah. So you
I'll
weren't
let
all at the same university then, right?
no, we were
Got
all
it.
different.
Wow, that's kind
universities.
of cool then. Like, how did this all happen, right?
It's
Because
like online dating. But-
it worked. You made a match then.
yeah.
And I was actually one of the speakers that came and spoke at a meetup. And that's how we got connected. I joined one of the meetups. I ended up like messaging Larson separately and just saying, hey, like I've been working in climate for the past year, like would love to share my story into climate if it's helpful. And, we just ran with it and it's become something so great. And I'm really proud of what we've built, not only just for us, but, for the community, the students that we reached. It's been really incredible.
Yeah, I think that makes the story even cooler in that it's easier to do something when you're in proximity to one another and you found each other through these different meetups. And I think it's hard to collaborate online. So it's great that you were able to create such a good group. And thank you for that, because as an educator myself and teaching students who are interested in climate, they are really struggling in terms of finding where they're going to go after they graduate. And since this is a new school year and I know about your group now, guess what I'm going to be talking about in my class? This has been a struggle for me for a number of years in terms of connecting them, and so I'm glad that we all connected.
Yeah, luckily, it's a really great time to be getting involved in climate, right? There's new resources, new communities popping up all the time. And I think what we try to be is sort of a central hub to find those things, and navigate the resources that are out there.
Yeah. Well, I call this question your superhero origin story. How did you all get involved, or what inspired you to be climate activists, be involved in climate as a career? Kevin, I have that question for you as from one designer to another.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I originally came into climate tech from kind of a social entrepreneurship background because back in university, I went to USC and I studied a combination of like communications design and social innovation. So I think that the beauty of social entrepreneurship is the fact that there are so many in social entrepreneurship and also how it intersects with design and policy is that there are so many different social issues to target. And so when it kind of came down to kind of like the halfway point of my college experience, I was like, okay, I really want to dive deeper into a social issue that I think really resonates with me and I think is really meaningful. And so I think for me, I've always had a very strong connection to nature and to be connected with our environmental backgrounds and kind of like how humans interact with nature. So I knew that I started shifting more of my focus in social entrepreneurship towards climate and technologies, and then getting involved in the entrepreneurship ecosystem in USC was very powerful as well. And then I think where College to Climate kind of came into the picture was, I attended those meetups that Larson mentioned, and I absolutely loved the mission of getting to just like learn from other people, learn from industry professionals because I myself was trying to become one. And then for me, like I wanted to contribute some value into that space by helping the organization grow in terms of like their design presence. And I think that design is a very powerful lever in terms of getting people to understand like who you are as an organization. And I think when it comes to designing the visual presence of College to Climate, I wanted to make sure that the graphics that we've created, the content, the way that we position ourselves kind of in climate communities is very welcoming and very inclusive. And to help people understand that no matter what background you came from, like for example, I came from a PR journalism background, you can find your own path into climate tech.
Yeah. You did a good job with the
Thank you.
design. Yeah. Yeah. I enjoy the website.
Definitely. You couldn't have done it without Kevin. I think like what he's done a really incredible job is just that, right? Making it accessible and having it speak to really anybody. And
Yeah.
that's like really one of the core values that we try to uphold with College of Climate is we're welcoming. We want to just embrace students who may not even know that they're yet passionate about sustainability
Hmm.
because it's really reaching so many corners of business. It's something that everybody can, benefit from learning about and understanding. So Kevin has done an incredible job of, allowing us to reach more students through.
Well, Jess, how did you get connected to the climate movement?
Yeah, well, it goes back definitely farther, right? I grew up on a barrier island. So as you know, those are
Yes.
prone to some challenges. So I was
Uh-huh.
watching, the Atlantic Ocean take houses pretty much every year. I remember one year there was like 7 houses that,
Wow.
yeah, pretty local to me where their entire memories, their homes, I literally watched them collapse into the water. And so, of
Jeez.
course, that was really, really impactful. And it led me to learn about rising sea levels. And I was in high school and I started, learning more about the politics of the world. And I think I
Hmm.
was on Facebook actually when I saw like a video of this little girl crying about how animals are nice. And I decided like, you know what? I'm going to stop eating meat. It's going to be good for the planet. And that actually took me on a pretty incredible journey. I think what really helped me make my foray into climate tech and, the role that I have now at Redwood is ultimately that I ran with my passion and my excitement for solving climate change. And I created a social media page and I would actively post different recipes and food inspiration for people to, also consider adopting plant-based lifestyles. And that can only take you so far in the fight against climate change, but it took me really far in terms of having something to show my passion. And that's something that we really emphasize to students all the time is like a portfolio project or something to showcase your commitment to this mission over time is really impactful. And so, when I applied for jobs out of college, Redwood just happened to be one of them. And when I got the email, I pretty much knew that it was the role for
Yeah.
me, and it just worked out. So yeah, as part of that sort of progression, participated in the Aspen Institute's Future Leader program,
That's a
and
great
that's
program.
actually it really is. It was really incredible. It was so impactful, and so that's what I actually shared about during the first College of Climate meetup that I presented at, and so yeah, that was sort of my foray into climate tech and how I got here.
Is your page still up that you created so many years ago?
It is. It used to be Eating to End Climate Change. That was like I created a website and all that. That was my project. Now it's Climate Healthy. So if you do want to connect with me, feel free to,
Climate healthy. Good.
yeah.
Okay. Larson, what is your backstory?
Yeah, couple things. So I grew up in New Hampshire, small town, dirt road in the woods, part of it. I also just had it was always a topic in my family, like climate change and what are we gonna do about it? And it's definitely just was thinking about it from a young age. Wasn't sure for a long time how I was gonna apply it or even if I was going to. But I think kind of around when the college to climate journey started, when I just started learning more about climate tech and the cool innovative solutions that were being brought to market to solve all of these problems in all corners of the economy that as we know it today. I think I started getting really excited about it. For a long time, and Eric, maybe you probably agree with this too. I think a lot of the stigma around climate work is, oh, you can work for the government or a
Yeah.
nonprofit, or you could activism, or maybe some sustainability consulting at some super niche firm. And the more I started to learn and get tapped into these climate communities, I think you know coincided well with kind of the boom of the climate tech movement following COVID and all of that. But just started to learn about all the opportunities that were out there and how I could potentially fit into that. I studied business in school, and I'd done some data analysis work, and so I was just kind of trying to figure out how I could apply that to a climate career. And yeah, like Jess said, showing a project that you can showcases your interests in the space, and you can kind of map that to some skills that you have or maybe develop in school. It's super key, and I think all of us did that in our climate job search, so we try to pass that on to students. But yeah, I mean, the more I learned about climate, the more I could thought this is just this could be so mainstream, so many people could get into this because this is just affecting all businesses and all parts of the economy, and
Yeah.
there's so much, exciting work to be done. And yeah, that's how I feel about, the role I have at home now too. So it's been cool to see it through.
Yeah, it's climate careers or environmental careers have definitely shifted in their stigmas since the past 20 years where you had to wear Birkenstocks and only shop at certain food co-ops to barely make ends meet at your nonprofit job. But now there's just so many, right? And your group focuses on climate tech. And you've said that numerous times, that phrase climate tech for students. Can you talk more about what that means and why you chose to focus your work in climate tech?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be happy to jump in. I think what Larson was just saying about, right, and also to your point about this misconception about what a climate career or an environmental
Mhm.
career really looks like. I actually believe it's still really prevalent because a lot of young people do not understand the amount of opportunities that are out there
Yeah,
for them to work
that's good
in
to hear.
climate tech. Yeah, so we're still really, I think, in a lot of ways fighting against that stigma. When people think of an environmental job, they think of nonprofits, advocacy, grassroots work, or NGOs or a state agency, a water treatment facility. But, and there's nothing against those roles. Those are
Mhm.
those are a fit for some people. They may be a little bit more on the boring side for some others. But, there's so much out there. And that's what we're really trying to communicate is there are like, imagine, just like think about how many climate jobs you think there are and then multiply them by probably, upwards of 100 and whatever,
Really?
because there are so many and popping up every single day, right? Like, I think if there's one thing that we want to leave students with in general, it's an excitement about these fast-paced, exciting, collaborative opportunities because, there's startups, there are bigger companies, there are options for you, like depending on whatever path you want to go. But I think in terms of what we focus on quite a bit, we definitely focus on kind of the startup-y world. And we
Hmm.
find that to be really exciting, especially for young people. And I think there's definitely room for us to talk about some of the opportunities presented by startups and how that is such an emerging industry.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, kind of going off of that, talking about, climate tech and kind of the startup-y world, I think people don't really understand, like for designers specifically, like brand designers, product designers, content designers, like these designers have so much value within climate tech. It's absolutely understated. And I think that when people look for job opportunities, like, for first off, like there are many different kinds of, like, for example, venture capital firms, climate VCs who they're trying to connect their climate startups and climate portfolio with designers. That's really, really powerful. And I think that's something that people should look into, especially if they're in the design industry. But also the fact that all companies always need design and creative work, no matter
Yeah.
what. It doesn't matter if they're climate or not. But like, especially within climate, people are really trying to create this visual movement within the space. So I think it's really important that also design students really understand that you can also be proactive and reach out to these companies to, potentially land like little gigs or
Mhm.
projects or we can like work with.
Yeah. Well, how did you two reach out to the climate tech companies that now you work for?
So, how I ultimately got my job was I was part of this community called MCJ Collective. If you
Yeah,
haven't
it's a
heard of,
great group.
yeah, great group. I was recommended to join that when I think it was like my first like informational interview I did. Like I had no idea what climate was, and the guy I was talking to could tell, and he's like, "Just join MCJ, like you'll figure it out." And and it was like one of the best decisions I ever made. Like the job at OM ended up getting posted in that Slack group like a year and a half later. And so I just, it was through that community that I found the job. And through
Great.
that community, I got mentorship. And through that community, that College to Climate got started. Realistically, that's how we like, they actually MCJ Leonie from MCJ, if you know Leonie Eric, she like kind of mentored us into hosting our first meeting and allowed us to like
Wonderful.
through MCJ and post. And that was like our initial launching point. So
Actually, now one of our co-founders works at MCJ, which is really cool too.
Yeah, yeah. Full circle then.
yep.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the students in general, no matter what area they're in, and I experienced this a lot teaching them in their senior year, come around, graduation time, they're already nervous about their future. And then to hear your stories about you finding your way after graduation, I think is good inspiration for them. So I'm happy that we're talking because I'm very excited about your Launchpad program. And I definitely want to share that with my students this year. And I hope anyone that's listening can share that with theirs. How does students in general get involved with your Launchpad program and what is it?
I think first off, and then maybe Larson, you can fill in any gaps for us. But the Launchpad program has traditionally been a 4-week program where we'd run students through iterations of curriculum, as well as introduce them to experts for AMAs for them to ask their questions to directly. We have challenges that they complete every week, and it's really just designed to be a playbook for students to launch their careers. So they're able to collaborate, work together on portfolio projects, and it's really, yeah, that's what it really is. It's like an accelerated sort of boot camp for landing your climate job. But we are sort of in the process of, iterating on how we're going to envision the Launchpad moving forward.
Mhm.
And yeah, we're super excited about what that's going to look like. But yeah, Larson, anything to add? And I know, Kevin, you've been a part of the Launchpads in the past with us working on those and would love to hear any additions you have as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rundown, like Jess said, one word you sum it up in a playbook. But I think I mentioned earlier is like our north star is kind of like making opportunities that exist visible, and we spend a lot of time just breaking down what those are. I would recommend this chart made by CTVC, Climate Tech VC. If you ever everybody knows, or if you haven't heard, definitely check out CTVC. But they have this chart that breaks down the 7 verticals of climate, and it's just a framework for thinking about all the opportunities that are out there. But we spend a lot of time talking about that, all the opportunities that are kind of within each of those verticals. And then a lot of the program is very actionable, where students are learning about the opportunities that are out there, but then also like getting to talk to the speakers that come from those industries to talk to the Launchpad cohort, and then also kind of initiating outreach from their part, uh, to a contact on LinkedIn or over email to try and start flexing those muscles of interviews, and kind of getting comfortable, getting a little uncomfortable, and
Sure.
kind of
Yeah. It's necessary.
now reaching out. That's a really big thing that we teach. So yeah, Kevin, any other thoughts there?
I think you've really honestly covered the ground for the Launchpad. I think it's really just such a great thing to get involved in, and I highly recommend just, I mean, well, yeah, like getting to interface with so many different other students who are in the same shoes as you. I think that's a really powerful camaraderie.
Hmm.
And I think that's very understated, because I think once you find people who have with similar interests, like they don't even just become like your peers, like some of them can also become your friends as well.
Is this something that a student can participate virtually or is it in person?
It's
All
virtual.
virtual, yeah, but we are thinking about other ways to kind of make it more
Yeah.
engaging and possibly interactive. But for any students who are interested in the Launchpad, you can visit our website, collegetoclimate.co/students, and you can register to join the waitlist, and we'll keep you posted on any updates about Launchpad for the fall.
Yeah. The fall is coming soon. And this particular episode is one leaning into that. And I noticed on your website that universities are a big part of your partnership program, and you've partnered with quite a few recently. I'm curious, as a faculty member at a university, how can someone like me become part of this program, and tell me more about the program in general?
Absolutely. There's a couple things. So we recently launched our Career Center program, and the reason doing this is really all in an effort to reach as many students as possible. And career centers being a focal point on campuses for that job search process. We think it's super beneficial that they have an understanding of climate and the career pathways that are out there. All kind of similar information that we want to convey to students, if they can be kind of a beacon for that, definitely the goal. So, our Career Center program is an opportunity to come. We make it community centric. We've had a lot of success kind of fostering community on the student side, and think on the Career Center side that can be super beneficial as well. But we connect career services professionals through this program to hiring managers that actually come and speak about roles they're hiring for, trends, what they're looking for out of students, anecdotes of students that have been successful in their internships or entry level roles at their companies. And then we share also from our perspective a lot of the mentorship advice that we've given to students over the past couple of years, which I think is pretty powerful as well. And we also developed our Career Center handbook, which is meant to kind of accompany the program. So the program is a virtual opportunity similar to one of our meetups, even, where the career centers come. There's speaking portions from the recruiters from our side as well. We also left everybody that participated with the handbook, and that really walks through all advice for career advising professionals, where we talk about kind of one-on-one coaching for climate career pathways that we've done with students. We talk about strategies for building your climate employer network, and we talk about strategies for student engagement and bringing climate employers actually to your campus and hosting events that students want to get involved in, and it can help them learn about climate careers. So really meant to be an all encompassing experience. And yeah, we're super excited about it. We ended up having 13 universities join our first iteration of the
Hmm.
program. We hope that University of Illinois would
Yeah.
join the.
How do I do this? How do I sign up?
We'll direct you to the website for sure.
Okay.
Uh,
We typically will set up interviews, so we'll have conversations with universities first and foremost to kind of understand where they're at with their climate career resources already. Some schools have made some progress and they have a lot of resources already on hand, while some are very, very, very new and really don't know about anything that's really out there for students in terms of entry level roles in climate tech. So that sort of information phase is really important for us to then kind of walk through, if the program would be beneficial and how we can work together. Because really, it's a kickoff of a longer term partnership with our university partners because we really want to be engaged and be a resource. So we offer sort of like a consulting model after the program where you can give us feedback, ask for anything that you might not have gotten out of the program. And we are making sure that we're getting all of our partners all of the information that they could possibly need in order to support students. And that looks different for every university.
Yeah, I'm sure. And it sounded from what Larson was describing, there was a lot of design work that was done to get this done. So, Kevin, good job again.
Thank you. Yeah, no, design is important. And I mean,
Yeah,
I podcast is all about it, but really and truly, like there's
I know. I
some,
keep going back to it, don't I? I wonder. Yeah, the design component in climate communications is something that's come up many, many times and with my guests, and being able to tell the story of the data, being able to pull on the heartstrings to a lot of laundry list of different strategies. It can't be said enough how important design is to work with people like you and in all industries.
yeah, design, second that design is like, I think
Preaching to
it's
the
so important.
choir, right?
Yeah, really and truly, like it's like design. Whenever you work on like a new brand or identity, it's like you want to make sure that especially within the climate movement, that we make climate action beautiful, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Not something that's
Yes.
doomsday, like, oh, we're screwed. No, there's like so much things we have to do. Like, no, make it something that's hopeful and inviting and
Yeah.
allows people to participate in very beautifully.
I'm really curious about what you would call your success stories there at College to Climate, uh, that you've experienced since you started it. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think one thing that was really cool getting to see college climate like kind of grow and evolve over time is the kind of the virtual community that we've been able to build out. So we have a Slack group now, and it has like I think 1,200 students and young
Oh,
grads.
wow. That's great.
Yeah, it's insane. I remember first joining and I was like, oh gosh, like where's this going to go over time? But the conversations in there have been really awesome. People sharing collective resources together. But over time, we've also evolved into in-person experiences. So, for example, most recently, we during SF Climate Week, Jess and I were actually able to go in person to host a in-person
Awesome.
meetup in the Mission District in San Francisco. And so that was very important, I think, because so for a lot of these, big climate events, like there's a lot of seasoned professionals that go into the space who, they've had years of industry experiences. And then here's us, these like really young new grads, really just wanting to, but it's really daunting to go into these spaces and say like, hey, I want to talk with you, or like, hey, like let's network together. But to have like a community of students kind of after that event was really awesome because you would bump into the same students at these events and be like, hey, like let's go talk with these people together, or like, hey, if you need someone to just kind of be a helping hand during the process, like, you know that you have someone next to you. I think that's something very, very powerful about these like in-person experiences.
Mhm. Yeah, I was gonna ask you guys if you had ever met up in person, so I'm
Of
glad to hear.
course. Of
Yeah,
course. Yeah. We
good.
actually do a good amount of in-person meetups nowadays. Of course, we originated as a virtual community, but that's not how we want to remain, right? So we've
No.
done a lot of like in-person speaking opportunities at universities to school clubs, but I think more notably, what we've been able to create are more impact-driven, higher level, like larger scale events. And I think, Larson, you're definitely the best person to speak to that in terms of what our symposiums look like and other ways that we kind of look at events for to meet our mission.
Yeah, it's perfect because I kind of left that out of the previous question on how we're working with universities. But yeah, we ran our symposium this spring in partnership with Boston University, which was almost like a launchpad program and all in one day, with a career fair added and the in-person component added. And it was really cool because we had students from 21 universities attend the event,
Wow.
at
That's a lot.
BU in a beautiful building overlooking the Charles River in Boston.
Uh,
There were 100 students there. We had 13 companies come to table, across startups. We had a utility there, some corporates. It was a really good mix. We had a speaker panel come as well. We ran some of our workshops from the Launchpad program and got to do it all in person. So that was really awesome. We're actually running another event, a similar event with BU this fall in October. So any Boston area folks listening to this, definitely, if you're a student, come to the event. If you're a university faculty member, let your students know. We'll be there on October 5th. But yeah, that was quite the experience. I think that really like fired up everybody on the team too, is kind of the point at which we saw it all come together in person, and also just overall how we'd kind of pulled that off. And side note, we have all kind of hung out in person.
Good.
And I'd met everybody on the team until except Kevin until like a couple of months ago. I was in San Francisco, so we met up, which is really cool. And yeah, we've had some long in-person sessions in front of the whiteboard at Greentown Labs all together. If you're familiar with Greentown Labs, climate incubator space in Boston.
I'm a former Bostonian, so I miss that Charles River view, and so I'd love to be there, but I don't know if I can make it.
Yeah, maybe we gotta have
Um,
a symposium in Illinois.
Yeah, you should. Yeah,
and speaking of, well, Massachusetts, but also in-person events, we're really excited to have been awarded a grant through Mass CEC, which is the Massachusetts Clean
congrats.
Energy Center. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're really excited about it, and that's a really incredible partnership for us as well. So we'll be helping them to host an in-person event for their internship program, which is a really great program. So definitely wanted to give them a shout out and a plug for anyone who is based in Massachusetts and is looking for an internship role. They're really helpful. I think one thing I'll say to you in terms of our successes, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, we want students to get jobs in climate, especially those who are passionate and excited about it. So anytime a student lands a climate job, that's a win. I think one of the most concrete examples, for me at least, is one of our Launchpad members actually heard me speaking at the welcome session, and I was sharing about my role at Redwood and all the really cool and exciting different tech companies and initiatives that I get to work on. Right, as I mentioned, I work in PR and communication, so that's a pretty broad field. We do a lot
Yeah,
of different stuff, and she was really excited and really inspired to learn about it. And so, as a result of having heard me speak, she actually reached out, not directly to me, but she did use my name and mentioned that she was a part of the Launchpad, and she had learned all about Redwood, and that she would love to apply for our internship. And so I did not have a hand necessarily in picking in picking her application, because I didn't even know until my colleagues had passed it along eventually.
name
And
dropped. She named.
yeah, she did, and it worked. And so that just shows the power of our community, the
Mhm.
power of networking and building the right connections. And so as a result, she went through the interview process, and she was a great fit, and she was an incredible intern at Redwood and has moved on to continue her climate communications career. And I think, to me, that I mean, of course, right? It's super
Yeah.
fulfilling to be able to
Yeah.
manage and be a part of someone's growth and career. But I think in general, right? Like we want students to get careers. So it's always something whenever we can help facilitate that.
Yeah. That's a great example of a success story for an educator too, right? Just hearing about one of my students and where they are now and seeing how happy they are with
Yeah.
what they're doing. So they found their passion, right?
Totally. And that's all you can ask for, right? Is students to get jobs that inspire them, that drive them, that they feel like it's having an impact. Because we know that's what really is rewarding to us every day. We feel like we're actually, having an impact
Yeah.
at the in the roles that we do. And I think too, and we can maybe, I don't want to go on a tangent, but especially in the climate space, because there are so many startups, it's a really great way to advance your career as well, because you'll be a much larger portion of that entire company likely, and
Yeah,
you'll have
that's
a lot
true.
more responsibility and a lot more ability to grow. So I like to remind students of that as well.
Well, what's next for College for Climate? What's your 5-year plan?
I love that question. It's a good one. I think we can sort of frame it right in terms of like where we originated, right? We're super
Yeah.
student focused. We'll always be super student focused. We're really community first. And with that said, as part of our mission to reach as many students as we can, the progression has been for us to now partner with universities more broadly. And I think more into the future, we're envisioning being able to partner, with even more universities as well as more companies and climate innovation hubs. But yeah, Larson, I feel like this is a loaded question, but it's a fun one. So definitely want you to chime in as well if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to share something. I think this falls into the 5-year plan category and the success story category. Is we want to make this as visible as possible to students, and I think we're already like on our way to proving that. Just by the fact that our company or our community is so diverse in terms of its academic backgrounds, and that we really we really want students, and not just students, we want universities and faculty at universities and professionals that work for universities to know that if you want to do sales, or you want to be a software engineer, or you want to be a chemical engineer, or you want to do communications, or anything in between, there is something out there for you. Like I just want to like hammer that in. Like
Thanks for that. That's true.
that's my biggest point. And I think, by reaching as many universities and working directly with them to kind of push this information out to their students, I think we're on our way to accomplishing that. And I think also, as we go farther down the line, like we'll, have some metrics too to see, how many students are getting climate jobs, and how we can further help there, and
Yeah.
how many more students we can get into climate career pathways. So I spent a lot of my days at looking at data, so think of it from the data
Well,
perspective, but
I,
definitely.
I promise all three of you that I'm going to be forwarding your information to our career services person and our director of the sustainability program, because this is your organization is a resource they have been looking for and have not found for quite some time.
But thank you so much. That's exciting to hear. We know that there's a need. We've been reminded of that time and time again, but every time we hear it, we're glad that we can be there to fill that gap, because it is really
I
important.
am too. Well, school's coming up soon, and as it heads back into the session this fall, I'm really curious about what you are most excited about and maybe concerned about as well, as this was also a discussion I had with a lot of the people I work with recently.
Yeah, I can hop in and just say that like I'm really excited to hopefully mentor more climate designers personally. I think that's really important. And like for example, recently, like I was having this conversation with another designer, and I was kind of spewing out all these different kinds of resources related to like how design and climate kind of like intersect. And you realize that there's actually within the design world, there's not necessarily like there's definitely not any gaps in design knowledge, but there's definitely gaps in like climate resources. And it's
Yes.
important that we use climate resources with the design world so people can apply their design knowledge to that space. So whether the person is a graphic designer, a content designer, a strategy designer, like UX research, like all that kind of good stuff, it's really important that more students understand, not only kind of like their discipline and craft, but more so like where can they apply that craft to an area that they are very passionate about. And obviously for us, that is to tackle climate change.
Hmm.
And I can jump in here. I think I'm equally as excited to be working with students and witnessing students embark on their journey and, being a part of that mentorship. As Kevin was mentioning, I think even more broadly for me, like what I'm really excited about is all of the investment in climate tech and all of the opportunities that are being opened up. I think it's actually a really interesting sort of topic because with so many tech layoffs, you're hearing about how
Yeah.
it's an employer market. There are too many, talent, too many high like qualified people, too much talent for the actual opportunities available. And with that said, while it sounds like this could be concerning, it actually does present a pretty ideal opportunity as well for young people. Because, like startups are looking for people who are flexible and nimble and also will probably take less benefits and a lower
Hmm.
salary. But because there's such a demand for climate jobs, everybody, like not everybody, but a lot of people now really want to work in climate. And, you've seen all of the mid-career professionals transitioning to a sustainability role or seeking a climate job.
It's good to hear.
It is. It's really exciting and it's actually really interesting. Like at Redwood, we've had mid-career professionals applying for our internships. And of
Wow.
course, they know they're overqualified, but the demand is so high. And again, right, it's a really competitive market. And while that sounds like it could, again, pose sort of a threat or a challenge
Hmm.
to the younger professional with less experience, it really doesn't work out that way because you know, a new climate startup doesn't want to hire someone that's going to outgrow their role very quickly. We're actually usually turned away from someone who's overqualified for a role that we are hiring for. So definitely there are so many opportunities still nonetheless for young people, especially in credit tech because for this reason, right? With so many layoffs, it can be easy to kind of get
Yeah.
nervous and scared. But if you look at the trends in investment, right, tech has gone so far down, but climate tech, interestingly, has been particularly resilient to the decline in investment that other tech has experienced. So it's a really exciting time to be jumping in and joining climate
Yeah.
tech.
Well, that's really good to hear because that was one of my current concerns heading into the fall with the amount of tech layoffs I've seen happen. And was climate tech going to be the next to be cut?
It's definitely been a slower time.
Yeah, I mean, and not to mention, like, the opportunity is so there right now for the non-technical roles at the tech companies. That's like a big piece we try to like
Mm.
unpack when we explain climate tech is that it's not just your software engineers or, your mechanical engineers, your PhDs or whoever it may be. Actually, a lot of these companies are really in need of people who can bring products to market and talk to people. And, climate tech is kind of like, coming to that state where in its kind of first few years or, in the last 5 or 6 years, I think, a lot of companies were very focused on developing new hardware or software, doing very sophisticated kind of product development work, maybe in a lab, maybe not, depending on the company. And now a lot of these, technologies are ready for feedback. They're ready for customers. They're ready for action, and that's a really good opportunity for students. I think when you think of the maybe quintessential entry level like business career, it's somebody picking up the phone and like getting in touch with customers, and I think you're going to see kind of more of that in climate as it just becomes like more mainstream and more just a part of how things are. And I kind
Well,
of dream of a world where like you get a climate job, but it's not even like different or cool. It's just like normal,
mhm.
like
That's what it should be, right? It's how we should be doing things.
Arc on Climate's slogan is right, like make climate mainstream. And I agree, it's
Yeah.
inevitable. I think one thing that's interesting too is when you typically think of a startup, you don't often think of them hiring entry level
That's
roles,
true.
of course, right? They need the higher level executives who
Hmm.
can, be the unicorn and really like push the mission forward in those early days. But I think once you reach kind of past the Series A, it's not it becomes less true. They do need, some people to pick up the slack on the things that aren't getting done. And we try to communicate the value of students and young people at climate startups to be able to fill those roles and actually, help kind of progress the mission. And I think in addition to what we shared about our 5-year plan, I think that's a really big vision that we have as well, is really ultimately like generating and
Yeah.
creating jobs for students and creating opportunities in partnership with companies and innovation hubs to more directly build that pipeline and that pathway for students.
Well, Jesse, you used the word resilient in one of your answers, and that goes into, I think, part of the question, which was maybe what concerns you. And I think in some of the discussions I've been having in climate world, resiliency came up in terms of how resilient are we in the face of maybe political shifts, right, that may happen in the fall. And I'm curious to see if that is something that you as an organization have thought about, or are are not too worried about it because hey, it's just been so resilient.
We're not that worried about it. These are essential technologies that are being deployed, essential solutions. There are some sectors that will be more impacted if things do switch around, but ultimately we're not concerned about that, I'd say. And actually, if you are interested in the topic at Redwood, we're hosting a New York Climate Week virtual event on the topic, and you could definitely
That's
come
great.
here and dig into the topic with us
Yeah, is
instead.
there going to be we could provide a link to that for
Yeah,
everyone.
definitely. Yeah,
That'd
for
be
sure.
wonderful.
It's so funny. Like I spend my day job, covering probably one of the most politicized sectors of climate,
Yeah.
electric vehicles and EV charging. And it's super interesting, like diving into the data, what is included in the kind of mainstream narrative and where the market's actually moving. You know, there's so much like fleet electrification going on, electrification at multifamily properties and things
Yeah.
that kind of fall outside of the realm of like the Tesla superchargers and the collapse of the Tesla supercharging Elon Musk and this and that. And like there's so much activity there and there's so much good going on and progress being made. There's a lot of challenges, of course, but uh, just my anecdote of I think we're kind of moving in the right direction regardless of what happens in November.
I was just going to tack on, right? I think the global regulatory landscape really communicates that and conveys that to us. There's a global shift towards sustainability
Yeah.
data being valued and actually being
Mhm.
required in addition to financial data. And I think that is just the underpinning of, where the world is heading. It's really pretty undeniable.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the downside is with as just a general public, we don't hear the stories as much as we should that you're in the weeds in every day. And so I think in some of the conversations I've had, the worry or anxiety really comes from, well, we don't have that knowledge that you do.
Totally.
So I'm hoping more people that listen to this will feel a little bit better about it, no matter what happens.
Definitely.
That's
That's one of
like,
the biggest things, yeah, that we communicate, right? Is like we get to be a part of the solution every day and it's so exciting and so inspiring. And so like that could be, you as a listener too, if you're a
Yeah,
student and
definitely.
you're looking for these jobs.
Well, I'm coming up to my last question here, and I'm going to ask this to Kevin because Kevin's a designer, and it's my favorite question that I ask, and that is if you were able to switch roles with me as an educator, knowing what you know and what you do, what project would you assign your design class?
My gosh, yeah. I think within the design world right now, there's a lot of talk and conversations around like human computer interaction. So, people love to talk about UX design, software design, but I actually would argue that we should kind of start thinking about human nature interaction
Mhm.
and how to
Mhm.
design for nature. And so I think that within these areas of ecology and nature, like how do we utilize this space? How do we utilize the physical world to design better spaces that kind of like work in harmony with both our cities and the human condition, nature-based solutions? I think that is something worth designing for, not in terms of just like, traditional tech like software and hardware, but also just like nature as like a system and how it's integrated into our world. So I think that would be if I could one day get like a PhD in this field, that would be. And I also think it's really important. Just one little thing is to like tack onto that is, impact frameworks. Like it's really important that designers obviously know how to utilize their design skills, but how do you measure your impact through data, through numbers, and through your designs as well? Like how can you really prove the value of
Mm.
climate design? And that's also going to be really important because if you're able to prove the value of climate design, you can go into other organizations and say, like, this is why we need to bring design to the table in the climate sphere.
Love it. And I think you can. There's a number of different places where you can go get that PhD. So one day, one day.
Yeah. My thesis, I will defend it to
Yeah.
the day. Yeah.
Well, thank you to the three of you. And where can we again find you online and stay connected?
Yeah, definitely. If you want to learn more about us, the best place is to check out our website. Again, it's collegetoclimate.co. There's a lot of different nuggets you can find there, but of course, you can also reach out to us directly at team@collegetoclimate.co as well. And then if you want to just stay connected more casually, follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Instagram. We try to keep it as up to date as possible and stay in the know. But the truth is, if you're a student, we really want to point you to our Slack community because that's the best way to get the most involved, the most connected, and meet other students. We facilitate coffee chats, and it's a really engaging, vibrant community. So definitely, you can find that on the student webpage as well.
And I'll put all the links to all of that in our show description. So that's going to be in multiple places for everyone. Well, thanks to all of you. It's been wonderful meeting you and talking with you. And I wish you the best of luck in your project. And I'm definitely going to be staying in touch. And like I said, connecting you. But is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
We really just want to leave students inspired and excited about all the opportunities that are out there. And definitely, if there's still question marks, we're here for you. But this has been incredible, Eric. Thank you so much for having us. It's a joy to be connected.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jess, Larson, and Kevin. It's been a great hour or so talking about your organization. Thanks for listening. And we want to hear from you. What did you take away from this discussion? We also want to know how you are changing the system. Email us at climifypodcast@gmail.com or connect with us on Instagram at climifypodcast. We would love to read your inspirational stories on the show in upcoming episodes. This program is produced by Cam Birkins with writing and research by Abigail Zook, Jackie Himmel, and Bhavna Bhavani Shankar. Designed by Adam Java. Sound engineering and editing by me, Eric Benson. A special thanks to Mark O'Brien at the Climate Designers and Tink Media for their sage advice to make this season even better than the last. You can find design prompts and more information on all our guests this season at climatedesigners.org/edu/Climify and on Instagram and LinkedIn at Climify Podcast. If you enjoy the work we all do here and you have a spare minute or two, we would truly appreciate it if you left a rating and review over at Apple Podcasts. The more folks reviewing our program, the higher the algorithm pushes us up in the search results. And in turn, the more likely we all could learn how to become climate designers.